Hello. Can you hear me okay? Tina, I think you're muted.
Can you hear me? Hi, Tom.
Hi, great. You have a beautiful view. It's
Thank you, San
foggy
Francisco.
today.
Let me see. Okay, we got 11 participant people be filtering in. I know your time is limited. Do you want to start? Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Q&A session with Tom Putnam. Hello.
Hey.
Hey, Bruce. This is Tom Putnam. That's the movie producer and writer for The Dark Divide.
Hello.
Hello.
I hope you are all well and safe and COVID-free.
Yes, you as well.
Yeah, we are. We are. So I'm going to be running the session, and I'm Tina Choi. I'm the CEO and founder of Travonde, and our mission is to build healthier and happier communities all over the world, like showing your movie, Tom, and working with people like Bruce in Redwood City. I mean, we have a wonderful showing on Sunday, so thank you. Right, Bruce? Did you enjoy the movie, Bruce?
I enjoyed every bit of it except for the one part where he was talking to the ranger when she was giving him water and asking about Sasquatch. My grandson came in and wanted to give me a hug, so I missed it. So I'm like, oh, what did he say?
Okay. Well, I'm sorry about that, but I'm glad.
That's okay.
Okay. So Tom, so let me give a brief introduction of Tom Putnam and have him take away. So Tom Putnam is a partner in Los Angeles-based production company TBVE Films. His past short films and features have played more than 500 festivals, from Sundance to Cannes, and been released to theaters worldwide, and won more than 50 major awards. And your previous features include the Detroit firefighting documentary Burn, which I really want to see. But it's one of the highest grossing documentaries in history. So Burn was #1 documentary independent film on Apple iTunes for its digital release, which is very difficult to do. Okay, Tom, I know.
You're telling me.
And it's the highest grossing title in Sundance digital distribution unit, and maintains a perfect 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Again, how do you do that? 100%.
Wow.
Not easy. This movie, somebody gave it a bad review. We got one bad review for Dark Divide, so we're at 92%.
Let me go talk to that person.
Okay, thank you.
So, and you've also received more than a dozen major screenwriting awards and developed both features and series with Fox, Go Circle, TNT, CNN, and ITV America. And you directed shows open for CBS, branded concept for LG Electronics, Warner Brothers, General Motors, Ford, and many others. So, Tom, congratulations for all your successes. Amazing.
Thanks for watching the movie and coming to this Q&A.
Yeah, everybody's excited. I mean, you have Bob, Veronica there talking about it, and Gary. Let me let people in. Give me 1 second. So today we'll be talking to you about your most recent movie, and the movie that we worked on together to show this past Sunday, The Dark Divide, which is based on a true story of a renowned butterfly expert. And his dying wife urges him to go on this epic journey through wilderness, and we go along with him. So what a beautiful physical and emotional journey that you took us through, Dr. Robert Pyle's characters. And in such a beautiful setting, like Gifford Pinnock National Forest. I've never been there. I want to go now.
It's nice, right? It's a nice place to spend 90 minutes after being cooped up at home for 6 or 7 months.
Right. So our first question, okay, so the format is I have these questions that people cannot attend. Let's ask those first. And then you're so generous that you allow the audience to ask you questions directly.
Sure.
So let's start with those. And this will be recorded and will be sent to the city's website too, so that they can also enjoy the Q&A.
Great.
Right. So tell us about the inspiration for the movie. How did you get inspired by Dr. Robert Pyle's journey?
A friend gave me the book about 10 years ago, and I grew up not too far from where his true story and his book took place. And I spent, a lot of my childhood and teenage years hiking and fishing and camping in a lot of those same locations. I live in Los Angeles now, and my son is 12. He drew this great backdrop for me. And his favorite things in the world are hiking and fishing and camping, which, living in LA, it's not the easiest place to go do those things. And I read the book, and it just really struck me. It reminded me how important and special that forest was, and how much I had been missing nature in my life, because I spend a lot of my day sitting in front of a computer now more than ever. And as Bob would say, as Bob told me yesterday when I talked to him,
Mhm.
you know, we're natural beings, and we're literally built to be in nature and interact with nature and not be in a box all day long. And I wanted to share this very special place to me with people, but also hopefully remind them about the importance of nature in our lives, and not just the Gifford Pinchot, but the park down the street or the sidewalk in your neighborhood that has more trees on it, and how spiritually and even physically important it is to connect with that and have that be a part of your life. And then, like, secondarily, my hope is that when people remember that, they'll remember also that it's our duty as people to do our part to help protect it.
Right. Yeah, it's
Um,
beautiful.
The area we filmed in, I mean, was large portion of it was on fire a few months ago. And it's,
Oh, jeez.
yeah, I mean, there are areas we
Wow.
filmed that don't exist now. And
Wow. Wow.
it's, and you know, that's also a part of the world where, and I'm not anti-logging at all,
Right.
but I do think it's a balance, and that's a part of the world where logging interests and clear cutting have a lot of sway. And there's a lot I learned making the film, that a lot of things I think of as forests are essentially just tree farms now, and they don't
Right.
have the biodiversity and the things that actually create a healthy forest that can last for, you know, hundreds of years.
Right. Yeah, I love that your film highlight that the need for nature and conservations, and talking about that you have a partnership with REI. Are they just on board with what you're trying to do?
Yeah, it's they came on board when we'd finished filming, but we'd been talking to them, oh boy, for years prior to that. And you know, they're based in Washington. They're an outdoor company. They're very much about like recreating responsibly. So it
Right.
was a good match for them. And then we're also partnered with the National Wildlife Federation, which is America's
Wow.
largest environmental nonprofit. And a
Wow.
portion of all of our profits from the film go to them to help support programs that protect wildlife and wild places. And they're a Big Ten organization. They have people from every part of the political spectrum in it, which is one
Right.
thing we really like, because, you know, if you saw the film, we also make a point of pointing out that, like, there's a lot of different perspectives on how to
Sure.
take care of the forest. And I don't think, hopefully you walk away from it feeling like no one person or point of view is completely right or completely wrong.
Right. I agree. So another question that we have that came yesterday was, how did you end up casting David Cross and Deborah Cross Messing? Well, for me, you know, Tom, I was surprised with the Deborah Messing, because I always see her in Will and Grace. So it's
Yeah,
such a completely different characters, right, than what she's playing. So tell us a little bit more about that.
sure. Well, I'll start with Debra. Most people don't know Debra is a highly trained dramatic actress. She was in Angels in America when it first opened. She, until COVID pandemic hit, she was going to be starring in a one-woman play on Broadway. I mean, she's a really experienced, talented, dramatically gifted actress. And I think people just think of her as Grace from Will and Grace. So she doesn't get offered things like this very often. And she really responded to the material, was excited to do something that was like the opposite of what she normally does, and kind of hide herself in the role. A lot of people don't know it's her until they get to the end. And her mother died of cancer very suddenly.
Wow.
And she talked to me a lot about how this was a way for her to, I guess, reconnect with that and get some closure and some understanding of what her mother went through. Totally unsolicited by me, she went out and reached out to Tia's extended family and
Wow.
friends. And when she showed up at set, like, knew everything there was to know about her. A lot of the clothing and jewelry she wears in the films were Tia's. All the art,
Wow.
all the artwork you see in the film is Tia's actual artwork that Bob had. So I think her performance was pretty, at least according to Bob and the people that knew Tia, was pretty spot on.
Right.
And then for David, I knew it was going to be a really tough role. I mean, there's 34 minutes of the movie that have no dialogue, and it needed to be somebody who could make the comedy work, could do the drama, which is, I mean, there's some very like heavy
Right.
dramatic moments, but also was somebody who could always grounded in a humanity that we could relate to, and that could somehow hold the audience's attention. And so I immediately veered towards stand-up comics, and David's a really interesting one because he's been in 100+ movies. He does some dramatic work, not a lot. And I love the idea of him being able to surprise the audience with what he could do. And I love that we cast him in it. I mean, now that I made it, I can't imagine it being anybody else but him.
I know. He was amazing, so funny and yet so serious. He was you filmed the movie with him in his underwear half the time, right?
No kidding. I mean, sometimes not even that. Yeah.
It must be cold for him.
So what you probably can't tell from the film is, when he's in the water, when he falls in the creek,
right.
That water was about 38 degrees, and we had to shoot it in 2 takes, and he actually couldn't speak and didn't know where he was for about 3 hours afterwards. It was just that cold. And
oh my God.
And that lava tunnel is a real lava tunnel, a private lava tunnel that nobody films in. And it was about 40 degrees in there, and we were down there all day, and everything in there was razor sharp. It's penis, Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. Like, what a gift to get somebody like David, who was like, yeah, hang me off the side of a cliff. Sure, I'll go in my underwear. Like,
right.
On most movies, you're trying to like persuade the actor. And on this, it was like the stunt people saying, no, David, you can't do that. He's like, come on, just put the owl on my head. So to have somebody like him that always wanted to push it further was, amazing to be able to have that.
He was really a joy for us to watch. Just funny.
Cool.
Yeah, funny and good. So related to that, actually, a question came in from David. Watching the film, I was constantly amazed at what dangerous, incompetent backpack Robert Plow was portrayed at being. Despite multiple warnings from people who knew better, he jumped into a 30-day solo track and proceeded to make every rookie mistake in the book. So many of them literally life-threatening. So since the film is based on a true story, I'm forced to wonder, was this realistic or was it exaggerated to increase the dramatic tension in the film? I mean, exactly. Wow.
Yeah, that's fine. So all of those moments you see, like on the edge of the cliff or in the creek, lava tunnels, all that stuff, those all either happened or something very close to that happened, where we just, because of the location, had to sort of shift it around. But when those things happen over the course of like a 300-page book, they don't quite seem as incompetent, I guess, as when you see it over the course of like the 104 minutes. I will say, despite the fact that all of that happened, the real Bob Pyle was a more experienced outdoors person, but the Gifford Pinchot is like incredibly dangerous, rugged place. I mean, it's one of the wildest places left in the lower 48 states. So it's a place where we were there with an entire film crew and people got hurt, and it was dangerous and scary.
Wow. Well, talking about the film, it took you 10 years to film this.
To finally like get it put together. We actually, once we started filming, we filmed very quickly. Because of the budget and David's schedule, we filmed the whole thing in 22 days, which is like lightning fast when you think about all the locations and the stunts and all we're outside all the time. So when it rained, we just kept filming. So when you see him out there in the rain, that's a real, rainstorm.
Yeah, you can't fake that, the scenes.
No, at least I can't on my budget. Maybe somebody can with more money.
Anyway, so I wanted, you said the audience can ask direct questions. I know that we have something on the chat. So Veronica, you have a couple of questions you want to ask Tom directly?
I wanted to ask you that owl scene. Was it a real owl or was it like robotic? I'm thinking it's real, but I'm just curious.
I can't afford robots. It's a real owl, and yes, it flew and it landed on his head, and it sat on his head, and it flew off of his head. It turns out, so I wrote the movie with it being a spotted owl, and I found out when we were up in Oregon, like prepping the movie, and everybody's up there, that it's illegal to film spotted owls because they're an endangered species. So that was a big problem. That was one of many surprises. Like, let's talk about shooting butterflies, which I don't recommend. Filming butterflies. So there are 2 trained owls in America, and we use one named Magnus who lives in Atlanta. And his owners, we sent out the hat ahead of time, and using frozen mice, they trained the owl to like, oh, if I go land on the hat, I'll get a mouse. So then we put the hat on David. And by the way, an owl, it turns out, is really heavy. It's not light, and it has these huge long claws, and they're like kind of trainable, but I mean, it's an owl. So we did that, and it landed on David's head. And in the close-ups, what you can't see when it looks down at him is there's a trainer right under him waving the frozen mice. And a lot of times it's hitting David in the face. And we basically knew the owl could eat 3 frozen mice, and then it would be full and not listen to us anymore. So it was a challenge. But yeah, that's a real owl. So we used a barn owl, and then digitally took its ears off and made it spotted. So
wow.
Oh, so it wasn't a real spotted owl.
it was a different type of owl, right?
Because
Because
you
you're not
couldn't.
allowed to film
Oh,
spotted owls. It looks pretty good, I think.
I thought so.
Yeah, that was definitely, we had some scary things on the film, and that was one that was really scary because the guys that trained him are probably one of the top 3 animal trainers in the world. I mean, they have tigers and they have everything, bears, and they'd never done that before. They'd never put an owl on somebody, let alone on their head. And it was definitely a nail biter.
I know. We should have Bruce Payton take a picture of the owl, Bruce. We have a resident photographer here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So Gary, you have a question? I see it here. Okay, maybe I can answer for him. It says, congrats, Tom. Debra Messing have a great star power. How difficult was it balancing the story of Dr. Pyle's wife in the latter part of the journey without being too heavy-handed?
That is a great question that nobody has ever asked. So the original edit of the film was about 3 hours long, and all of the Debra Messing scenes, except for when she drives up the runaway truck ramp, were all at the beginning of the film. The film was completely linear and it wasn't working. Okay. So as we kept re-editing and cutting the film down, I started taking her scenes and spreading them out throughout the film. So it was a balancing act just to sort of figure out what to move and what to land where.
Wow. Anybody else want to ask? Bob, any questions from you?
Oh, definitely. Now I know about that. But how to do the butterflies?
So, except for 3 shots, those are all real butterflies, and except for one where I couldn't get the right butterfly, they're all native butterflies to the area. So what we did, we didn't know what we were going to do. So I filmed all the scenes without butterflies in them, with the exception of the scene at the campfire with, it's actually called the ghost moth, the glowing moth that he puts in the jar. That was on set. The rest, he's just acting to air. And then as we were editing in sort of a panic, I was trying to figure out what to do. And a guy named Dana, I forget his last name, who's the Oregon State he's their head lepidopterist. He worked with us to, I'm going to use the word, capture all of the appropriate butterflies. And then when we were done editing, I went back up to Portland, and in an afternoon, we matched all the camera angles and filmed every single one of those butterflies with the correct camera angle in front of a green screen outside, and then put those into the film, which was like If you ever try to direct butterflies, it's not easy. And then they fly away and you don't have them and you run out of butterflies. So yeah, they're all real butterflies.
Wow,
Wow.
magical.
There's a lot. And I think it's we'd thought about making CGI, like digitally doing
Yes,
butterflies,
mhm,
and I'm
mhm.
really glad we didn't do that because I think that there's a certain texture to them that really feels
Oh, you knew they were
Artificial.
real butterflies. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I think I saw Susan raised your hand.
Yep, Susan?
Oh, I did. Yeah, thanks, Tom. Two questions. One, I'm a little embarrassed to ask because I'm afraid maybe I missed something. But the end, when he's in the parking lot and there's the glass happening, I was assuming that was some sort of a, we don't know where that came from, spiritual, metaphysical, get out of there thing. That's part one.
So something I'm discovering is on people's computers, or maybe it's my fault. If it's a little dark, you can't see it's this big rock that comes flying out of the bushes and breaks his window. So in that 3-hour version of the film, there was a whole through line, which was from Bob's book about these things called Bigfoot's bullets. Like throughout the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, you'll find these round, like cantaloupe-sized rocks that the local tribes will tell you they believe are Bigfoot's bullets that he uses to kill animals or smash logging equipment or protect himself with. So those were a thing throughout the film. Originally, like down in the lava tunnel, he sees some, and when he's at the camp out, they go to get firewood and they find some, and the guy explains what they are, and then it comes back.
Eat your mic.
But we had to we ended up cutting those out of the movie. So yeah, the end is a little. Some people are like, "Oh, Bigfoot must have thrown a rock," and then some people are like, "I couldn't see what it was." And yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Well, the other part was it was quite moving, the film, and I was just watching it for what, an hour and such, and it sounds like you were involved in it for 10 plus years, and then filming it for 22 days. And I was wondering, how did it, or maybe the one or two ways did it transform your life? Would you say by being a part of it?
Oh wow, that's a great question. I mean, something in my like personal life that I'm trying to work on is an understanding that if I want to see change in my life and I want to see change in the world around me, I shouldn't expect someone else to do that, and that the only person who's probably going to achieve that is me. And those are themes that I think in part came out of my reading of not just the book that the film is mainly based on, but it's also based on 7 of Robert Pyle's other books and many years of talking to him on the phone. And that was something I walked away from this experience with. And even like on a deeper level, and I've been thinking about this a lot over the past 6 or 7 months, which is that change is hard and can be painful. And just because it's hard and painful doesn't mean it's bad. And the idea that terrible things can happen in life and will happen in life. We all have been experiencing something since March. And when bad things happen, that's also an opportunity for growth and reevaluating your perspective on the world and what's important to you. And that's definitely something I've been thinking about a lot the last few months, and that I directly came away from the film with an understanding of.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think Yolanda has a question. Yolanda, do you want to ask yourself, or do you want me to ask? Okay, let me ask for Yolanda. She says, how true to his actual life, Robert Pyle's actual life, was this movie? What percentage? Maybe you can talk a little bit about the books, the 7, 8 books that you're compiled from.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably 85% accurate. He lives in a place called Swede Park. That wasn't the actual house, but it looks just like it. And we filled it up with Tia's art. His interaction and his relationship with his wife is spot on. He got a Guggenheim to go on that trek. The incidents in the film, I mean, virtually all of them are, except for the laser tag, are things that either happened in that book or happened in his other works that he's written. What we did change was the guy has a huge body of work. He's written, I think, 30 books and hundreds of like pieces of poetry and short form and essays and things. And I took a lot of that and basically had to put it in a single timeline. So a lot of those things switched around tremendously. But I think in terms of like his personal growth and the through line, that remained accurate. So everything you're seeing in the film, with one or two exceptions, are things that happened. They just maybe happened in a different order that didn't lend itself to like a linear film narrative.
Right.
The people that you see him encounter, those are all people he encountered over the course of his journey. From the family to the Forest Service, the forest ranger, who was somebody he actually kept running into, the loggers. There's people he had interactions with that we filmed that didn't make it in the final cut, like other hikers,
Right.
dirt bikers. It's pretty accurate. I will say, in the 10 years I spent trying to get the movie made, I mean, Robert Pyle's a well-known nature writer, so he's friends with all of the other nature writers, and many of them have had films, some big movies made from their books. And Bob told me about 1,000 times that all of them hated the movies that were made from their books. So I was very nervous, but Bob really loves the movie and feels like it was a very accurate portrayal of him, with the exception of the fact that his friends keep pointing out to him that they feel that he's a better outdoorsman than that. So, and taller than that. So, he's kind of, I think, was going to be my toughest critic on it.
Right. You did a great job producing the movie. I mean,
thanks.
amazing jobs. So anybody else have questions? Bruce, please, Bruce.
More of a comment. I'm a musician, and the soundtrack was fantastic. Loved every song.
Thank you. So a thing happened on this movie that never happens, which is that we got the rights to the music before we started filming. Normally you finish the film and you do an edit and then you try to get the music and you send them scenes. We got the rights to almost all the music before we started filming, and the Avett brothers, who did the majority of the music, are like a huge band. And for me, that was amazing because as I was location scouting or driving to set or filming certain scenes, I would be listening to the music or playing the music for everybody. So it really it was a very organic way to put the movie together, because I was shooting scenes knowing what the music was going to be. And it really kind of informed the vibe of the film. So hopefully it feels like they go together really well in a lot of cases.
Yeah, very appropriate. Very appropriate.
Thanks. The one song, the only song we didn't have, is the song that plays when he speeds away from the trailhead and there's the end credit roll. And that's from a band called Giants in the Trees, which is Chris Novoselic from Nirvana. It's his band. And we got that song because, and this is so weird, Bob Pyle, the book's author, is neighbors with Chris, and they're in a band together, which must be like the weirdest band ever. So they were friends. So I got this email from the guy from Nirvana saying like, hey, will you put one of my songs in your movie? And it's like, yeah, of course. So
He didn't make you, did you have to pay for the release or the rights?
Everybody charged us, I mean, real nominal fee, like 5% of what they would normally charge.
That's
because
great.
there's some of those songs are massive, huge songs.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else have questions?
Can
Oh,
sun
Veronica,
dance?
questions.
Can sun dance?
John? Yeah, John, go ahead.
That was my question.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Can sun dance?
Can Sundance?
You've won prizes from both of those places. I just wanted to.
Oh, got it.
Oh, it's a joke.
Got it. Yes.
I think Veronica, you have another question?
Yeah, the cave scene. So you said it's a real place, and you called it a lava cave.
So
And that the pictures in the cave. Can you give us a little
Sure.
more? Mhm.
it's So that was another thing. We went into the film not knowing how we were going to do it. Like, it's not exactly easy to take a film crew down into so lava tubes were formed when ancient volcanic eruptions, they're from ancient volcanic eruptions. So they're these big tubes coated with lava on deep underground, and they're around. They're very dangerous. You're not allowed to film in them because the bats actually they're very susceptible to certain diseases.
Mhm.
So that was another scary thing that I didn't know how we were going to do. And then we found this amazing place where I'll paint you a picture of this. You drive way out down a Forest Service road in the middle of the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, which is already pretty isolated. Then there's just a dirt road that turns off that you know to turn off. There's a gate with like a padlock on it, and you unlock the padlock, and then you drive down like a very narrow 1-lane dirt road for maybe like, I don't know, 3 or 4 miles, half an hour. And then you get to a clearing in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of this huge forest, and there's this old A-frame cabin. And you go in the cabin, and it's, it's like got like old 60s furniture, like a little square TV on a crate, and like the old gas stove and sofa and a rocking chair and stuff. It's like somebody's mountain cabin. And there's a bathroom door, and there's another door next to that. You're like, oh, it's a closet or something. And you open the door, and you get hit in the face with this blast of cold air. It's 30 degrees
God, wow.
cooler. And you strap on what's the thing mountain climbers use, like a safety rope, and you put on a hard hat and a light. And there's this giant, like, industrial stairs that goes down about 150 feet into this giant, like, it looks like Batman's lair or like a Bond villain. And it's this giant 1/2 mile long, 3/4 of a mile long lava tunnel that you can only get to it through this closet door in this guy's house. And his grandfather owns the property, and he like fell through into it and discovered it, 80 years ago. And so they built a cabin over the entrance. And yeah, it's a real lava tunnel deep underground. The petroglyphs you see were photographed separately. They're actually authentic petroglyphs from the what's the tribe in Arizona, the big tribe? Anyway, they're not petroglyphs, pictographs, I think they're called. They're authentic, and a lot of people photograph them because they have what people think of as Bigfoot. It's some big thing with the things coming out. And so we took those, and then we put those up on the wall there because in the original story, the guy was totally lost and didn't know where he was. So I wasn't going to trace that. But yeah, it's a real lava tunnel deep under the Gifford Pinchot National Forest that you get to from inside a guy's house like you're in a Scooby-Doo episode.
Tom, you should do a Dark Divide hiking adventures. Invite people to go.
There's an app actually called All Trails, which is a pretty common phone app that you use. They're putting out, I think this week even, a Dark Divide like section or page where you can see the actual trails and go hike a lot of those same trails.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, we should do
And
it.
I also want to say, for those of you who are not into an adventurous trip, we have on Travonde the Mule Woods National Park information. So if you want to get out to woods, but not the Dark Divide,
Not as rugged as
right.
Dark
That's
Divide.
good.
Right, try Mule Woods.
Maybe start the beginning first, right? Veronica, and then we do the Dark Divide.
Right.
Next month. Yeah, you don't want to go hike through the Dark Divide by yourself. Just the mosquitoes alone will kill you.
It's already on All Trails.
Oh, it is? Oh, that's fantastic. I knew it was getting put up this week. Which is kind of fun because you can also, use the satellite map, and you can kind of trace his path and see Cultus Lake and all those different places.
Right. So Bruce Payton, we should go do a Dark Divide, maybe just a introduction and take pictures of owls, things like that.
That's a lot of work for me.
Anyone else have questions for Tom? Oh, Yolanda?
For someone that got lost a lot, and he was lost in the cave, it seems a little unrealistic that when he came out right in front of his red backpack.
Well, he came out at a cave that he was listening to earlier, but then he hikes back to his backpack. But I hear you. So it's interesting you say that, because that's a scene that we ran out of time and we were supposed to film him hiking back to his backpack, but I ran out of time. The sunset.
Mm.
But yeah, those are the real locations. They're pretty rugged.
So Tom, in your interpretation, the ending, what was your interpretation of how you want to see the ending of David Cross? That he see the other side, and
You mean like after the film ends, or?
yeah, after after he went through the forest and he came out on the other side.
Oh, I mean, I think that was a moment where he finally feels like he's starting to become the person his wife always knew he could be.
Mhm.
And starts to be the person he wanted to be. You know, in the beginning, he's talking with the other faculty members at that party about,
Right.
you know, oh, my expedition, this and that. He's all talk, right? He's the guy
Right.
that sits on his
Right.
porch and writes about butterflies and doesn't have a lot of experience. You know, to me, if you watch the film, he acts like a kid. She's the parent in that relationship. And in the end, he's someone who's still, I mean, he's not there yet, but he's taken the first steps toward being someone who's an adult and in charge of his life and is interacting with the world instead of just observing it. What does Bob say? It might be in the movie, I can't remember, where he talks about it's his journey to be a part of nature instead of being apart from nature. And I think that speaks to a lot of things in his life. I mean, he went on to do you saw the end credits roll. He went on to do a lot of amazing things. Right. I mean, he's a 2-time winner of the Washington State Book Award. I mean, the list of awards is endless. And if you have a chance to read some of his books, I think you will see that he writes about nature and science and in the environment in a way that's incredibly personal and somehow gets you to see the world through his eyes and feel it in a really emotional way. The book this is based on isn't even my favorite book of his. There's a book called Sky Time in Gray's River, which is all about his life with Tia and his neighborhood. It's one of my favorite books of all time because it's almost like meditating. I mean, you read about it and it just puts you in this amazing place for the 250 pages of the book.
Wow. We'll have to put that in our book club, Veronica.
I was just going to say.
I could probably get Bob to Zoom with you and talk to you about the book. If you
Will
do
you
it.
please?
Yes. So what we'll do is
Okay.
we'll put it on the prioritize that book, and then Bob can come talk to us.
Cool. He's an absolutely amazing speaker.
Right.
He's different than David in that respect. Bob Pyle is about 6'4", and he looks like Gandalf, and he talks like John Huston. It's like a tree is talking to you. He's an incredible and very emotional, very thoughtful person to talk to.
Yeah. I think the community that we're serving will love him and his story.
Cool. Yeah, it's very.
Yep.
Is very in line with, I think, a lot of that's probably why you sparked the movie. It's in line with a lot of your themes and what you're doing in the world. Yeah,
Veronica actually, saw the trailer and said, we have to put this in. And then Bruce was really, really amazing and sponsored the movie. So
cool.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
You're amazing,
It was
Thank
from
you,
the
Bruce. Thank you, Tom.
City of Redwood City. Actually, it was donations from the seniors, though. It was good.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Any other questions? We're almost toward the end. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Tom. Congratulations on your successes.
You're welcome.
We will follow up with you on Dr. Piles and get that book going.
Great. And if anybody has any other questions you think of, I'm easy to find. You can email me at tom@darkdividefilm.com and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching the film and for all the great questions that you asked. I mean, half these questions nobody's ever asked me, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you,
Thank
Tom.
you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe.
Arigato gozaimasu.
Too long.